turned smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.
If I had, and I can't remember the number exactly off the top of my head, if I had 17 people that testified against me at my trial, all 17 of those people were arrested with me and after me. So where was the case prior to that? You know what I'm saying?
Break that down.
The case, if none of those people would have cooperated or testified to save themselves under the fake theory, okay, then who would have testified against me at trial? Nobody. The people that they used to testify against me at trial were the people that was arrested with me and after me. So what I'm trying to say is, you can't put the cart before the horse.
Right. Where you getting your case from?
Exactly. So where was the case to justify the arrest? You know, like I give you something that goes over big and goes past a lot of people's head. One of the things that the federal government does when it comes down to sentencing you to a life sentence or to a mandatory sentence, they use drug quantities, right? You know, one of the big myths that a lot of people overlook, and I'm just going to use my indictment to give the details, was that when I was indicted, my indictment didn't have any drug quantity in it. Why didn't it have any drug quantity? Because of the ghost drugs. The drugs didn't exist.
Right.
Now, as I sat there and I helped other people, I could see certain people had drug quantities in their indictment. On 5th Street, he was caught with 5 kilos and 5 grams, okay? So you had a lot of people who was doing life sentence and mandatory sentences with no drug quantity in the indictment. So when it came time for me to argue for bail, I asked for a bail and the judge denied the bail, and he denied the bail because he told me I was facing a life sentence. And so I said, no, how am I facing a life sentence? From what? He says, from the drugs. And then I said, what drugs? He says, the drug quantity. And I said, there's no drug quantity in my indictment, so how do you know I'm facing a life sentence?
Right.
But you get the bail. He basically told me it's a few things that you don't know or you don't understand about the federal system. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you're charged with a crime, and that crime doesn't get proven or it doesn't get established until after the trial or during the trial.
Right.
So the whole time you're facing a ghost, you can't
You
really
don't know
defend yourself.
what
You
you're
don't know what to
defending
fight. You don't know. And then when you finally get sentenced, when the jury is instructed that the defendant is charged with selling drugs and narcotics, but you're not to be concerned with the amount of drugs or the type of drugs that's involved in this conspiracy. Then once you get convicted, and in most cases you're gonna get convicted because the jury's gonna use simple logic. Oh, well, there was a couple of guys that pled guilty that were caught with drugs, so we believe that drugs was involved. The judge tell us, don't worry about the quantity, don't worry about the amount. So when you get found guilty of that conspiracy, then at the end, the judge and the prosecutor, they come in and they recommend the amount of drugs that was involved. And if you start to notice in everybody's cases, right, the amount always comes out exactly to what is needed to trigger the mandatory minimum or what is needed to trigger the life sentence.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So basically, it reaches a quota.
Right.
All right, this is the quota. We want you to do this amount of time, so we're going to say you have this amount of drugs.
Exactly.
Which would equate to the time.
Correct.
And that's with no evidence at all.
That's
it's just a bunch of people rolling over and saying, okay, I'll say this.
Right. And see, what they're saying is that theory is that their evidence is their testimony, and the jury believed their testimony.
But these are all people who have cases that they're fighting.
Right.
And they're taking plea agreements to throw a case on you.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
You see, like, even when you come back to, you know, it was a little topic earlier about snitching, right? And you mentioned a Gunna case and Young Thug and this plea was go on.
Right.
we are being manipulated to plead guilty to crimes that we did not commit. We're being put in a situation to say 10 years or either you can go home today. You don't have to tell me anything. All you have to do is say that a conspiracy exists.
Because I don't get to see what it is I'm going to be fighting.
Right. And so once you say that a conspiracy exists, okay, then the government has, once you get that first plea, the government has established beyond a reasonable doubt that a conspiracy exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a conspiracy, you only need 2 or more people to agree. Everybody else don't have to have the knowledge of what went on in the conspiracy. They don't have to know the drugs. They don't have to know the type of drugs. All the government has to do is prove that they were a member of that conspiracy. Then they can be held accountable for anything that goes on in that conspiracy.
So in the case of Gunna, when he took the plea, I saw an interview where Young Thug said that kind of set a lot of things off. Is that true?
Well, I'm saying it depends on who eyes you're looking at it through. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a person that's on an indictment with you, you're saying to yourself, yes, this guy is telling, because what he's doing is he's supporting the government's theory. Again, most of us get convicted on the theory, not the crime, not
Right.
what we actually did.
Right.
So when the government is saying a conspiracy exists, ask Gunna. And Gunna's that's saying yes, but he's not telling on nobody. He's helping the government establish that a conspiracy exists.
And that's basically all they need. That's
all they need to establish the conspiracy. So now, when a jury looking at it, the jury's not looking at the evidence as it is applicable to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at the evidence as to how they was instructed that they could find that the conspiracy exists. The conspiracy can exist from 2 or more people, and we got 5 people that pled guilty. So how are you telling me that a conspiracy don't exist?
So once you admit to the guilt, that pretty much puts everybody else in hot water, even if their testimony is not applicable to your case.
That's correct. Because you're entering a guilty plea that usually reads like this. I, Tommy Walker, agree that I conspired with those alleged in the indictment and those known and unknown.
Mm.
So now what I'm saying is that I agree with what the government says. I conspired with all of those people that's listed in there with me. So you can't get around that once you enter a plea.
And that's all the evidence that they need to convict other people.
That's all the evidence they need to establish the conspiracy.
Right.
Then they would have to still show that you were a member of that conspiracy. And that takes a little bit of evidence and no evidence. You know, because you got instructions like conscious avoidance instructions. And what conscious avoidance instruction means, like, for example, math, if you believe that Tommy was doing something illegally and you don't know what it was, and you sat there with blinders on and you decided not to do anything or say nothing about it, then you can hold math accountable for anything that Tommy did. It's conscious avoidance instruction.
So in the case of Thug, like if we were to compare Young Thug and Diddy's case, where you have people admitting that they partook in certain activities, how was Diddy able to get around the RICO and Thug still had to plead out?
Well,
This hot for trapper turn smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.